cooking on hot rocks in a hole, getting judged for your potato dishes, and purple corn gnocchi. This week, we're in Lima, Peru.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, I'm talking with Samantha Lewis from Lima Gourmet Company about one of the most famous foodie cities in the world, Lima, Peru. But first, take a moment to rate and review Destination Eat Drink on your podcast app. It only takes a minute, and you'll be helping other foodie travelers find the show. You can also support Destination Eat Drink at buymeacoffee.com/Destination Eat Drink. Drop me a couple of bucks to help the show, or even better, buy and download one of my Foodie Travel Guide ebooks. I just published a new Foodie Travel Guide ebook to Lecce and one to Monopoly, both in Puglia, Italy. Two great cities, and you can get yours at buymeacoffee.com/Destination Eat Drink, and thank you very much. You know, when you see lists of the best foodie cities in the world, there are some usual suspects that you can always expect to see. Paris, France, Tokyo, New York City, places like that are always on the list. But one that may surprise you is Lima, Peru. But every time people talk about the great food capitals of the world, Lima seems to always pop up. That's why I'm talking to Samantha Lewis, the founder of Lima Gourmet Company, a food tour operation that takes visitors all over the top places to visit in Lima, Peru. Sam was on the show 6 years ago, back when Destination Eat Drink was just a baby. And back then we talked about ceviche and pisco sours, but a lot has changed in Lima in the last 6 years. Sam tells me about how Lima has raised its international profile with acclaimed upscale restaurants. We also talk about some of the national dishes of Peru, a surprisingly spicy pepper, thousands of varieties of potatoes, and all kinds of different indigenous grains and fruits that are becoming popular on menus in Peru. Plus a little Peruvian wine talk. All right, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Samantha Lewis from Lima Gourmet Company and limagourmetcompany.com. Welcome back to Destination Eat Drink. It's been far too long.
Far too long, but it's a pleasure to be back with you, Brent. So much has changed, so I'm really excited to talk about it and take a look at all the transformation.
Oh, good, because that's what I really want to start with, because it's been 6 years, and I have to imagine in the culinary world, that's a lifetime almost. Tell me about some of the new stuff that's happening in Lima, Peru, this culinary capital of the world.
Yeah, sure. You know, it's almost like a chain of events, because since we've last spoken, a lot of great news have come out of Peru, and that we've had twice now 2 Peruvian restaurants have been named as the best restaurants in the world. So Central from Virgilio Martinez, and then this year we have Maido from Misha Mitsuru Tsumura. So from there, you know, that is a great jumping off point to get people interested in Peruvian cuisine and start to get it on their radar. We've had the best female chef in the world also named as Pia Leon from the restaurant Coye. So it's a lot of eyes on Peruvian cuisine now. So kind of back in the day, you know, one of the things that has happened because of this is almost a globalization of Peruvian cuisine, in the sense that you could travel, or in different cities, you might be able to find a Peruvian restaurant. In a bigger city, you might find a couple. And now they are all over Dubai, Hong Kong, London, Paris, Madrid. And the market is also becoming more sophisticated as they have more of a relationship or experience with Peruvian cuisine. They want more, so they want to dig deeper. And so that's reflected, you know, you asked about how it's changed in Lima. So because of that, it has really spurred a lot of innovation and competition in a very positive way in Lima. So you have chefs striving to bring in different types of influences, looking more at regional cuisine. You know, we've talked a little bit about in the past different fusions like Italian, French, Spanish, But now there's this really beautiful focus on different regional cuisine. So from the Amazon, from the Andean highlands, you have sustainability is no longer a catchword, but something that's really important and looking for local producers, your supply chain, things that are, protected species. So looking at underfished, or underserved ingredients. So it's really set a fire under people, to get that. To get different recipes out and get a lot of innovation. So that's what we're seeing. That's what we've seen in Lima since the last time we've spoken.
What would one of those elevated experiences be like? You mentioned these high level. I mean, when you're named the best restaurant in the world, the world's a big place. That's high praise indeed. What would an experience be like besides having to make sure we come in with a big wallet? What would the experience be like when we go there?
Well, you know what? Something that has really been born out of this is searching for ingredients that haven't typically been used. So the first thing you're going to see is ingredients you've never heard of. So even Peruvians, which is the cool thing, things they've never heard of. So I remember going with some friends to an Amazonian restaurant, Peruvian friends, and we look at the menu and they're like, I don't know how to order any of this. I don't know what any of this is, which is fantastic because it just really hypes up the biodiversity that is present in Peru. So you'll be introduced, with algae or different foams that are made from herbs that even have medicinal qualities. You have ingredients layered and prepared in very sophisticated techniques, and sometimes going back to ancestral ways of preparing, Virgilio with this Netflix documentary. That's been great to see, when you look at the watia and how they prepare, even, pachamanca, so digging a hole in the earth and letting the heat and the stones on top cook the ingredients. So what I think stands out the most is going to be the variety of ingredients. And so that's what you're going to see. You're just going to, and you don't even have to go really high end to get that because the competition is so fierce now. You have that in your restaurant down the street, which is one of the fascinating things to see. So you used to be able to find these experiences, you would have to center in maybe Miraflores, the district in Lima, or San Isidro. And so Lima is a city of 11 million people. And now you can find that in all kinds of districts, and all kinds of streets, and all kinds of cuisines, this search for using hyper local ingredients that haven't really been explored or toyed with before, have been under the radar. They just haven't been pulled out to the general public, which is what we see happening now. So that's what that would look like.
You mentioned the cooking with the geothermal, I assume it's geothermal, stones in the ground. I had never experienced that until we went to New Zealand several years ago, and that's a very indigenous way of cooking. It's very interesting. Yeah. And then I think it was last year, maybe the year before, I think it was last year, we were in the Azores, and they have the same thing because it's volcanic activity in the Azores.
Yes.
I guess I didn't realize it. Shame on me. I should have thought of this because, you're in the ring of fire there in Peru. It makes sense that you would have that geothermal activity and that folks would be using that to cook meals. What would some of the ingredients be? What would a meal like that look like?
Sure. Well, in general, so it's the Andes is going to be the origin for this in Lima. And instead of using the earth's heat, which is part of it, they heat up stones and they put on top. So you dig a hole, you put the ingredients and you layer it. So you have potatoes, you have tubers, over 4,000 types of potatoes in Peru. So different tubers, sweet potatoes. Then you'll put in your protein. So your meat, your beef, your alpaca. Then from there, different vegetables. So you'll have a lot of beans that'll be put in. You'll have corn. So also, I think there are 32 different types of corn. So you'll put in different types of corn into the pachamanca, and then you'll heat up the stones, cover it, put them on top, and let it sit for hours and hours as it's cooking. So that's the way that it's done in the Andes. No, you can find it sometimes in Lima, but the Andes is where you want to go for that.
Interesting. So it's similar ingredients that the Maori use and that the Azorians use. It's the layering idea of the vegetables and the meat and stuff like that, and the long cooking time. Yes. But it's not powered geothermally. It's powered by these heated rocks that are put into the ground. Ingenious, I would say.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Super cool. We'll dig deeper into some of these other topics that you've brought up, but I did want to talk about the idea of a national dish, because when I think of a national dish, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, it's one thing, or maybe they're arguing over two or three things, but last time I spoke to you, you were like, yeah, there's hundreds of national dishes in Peru. So I'm wondering,
there are.
maybe you could talk about a couple of your favorites.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. There are over 200 national dishes. If you ask a Peruvian what the national dish is, it's just going to depend on their palate. Two of mine, going back to that kind of regional idea, like Lima is centrally located, but on the coast. So if you go up north, you're going to have a delicious arroz con pato. So it's a rice and duck dish. The rice is infused with cilantro. So you have to be a cilantro lover. You can't be in the cilantro tastes like soap camp, So cilantro infused, you have your yellow chili pepper, you have a stout beer, or sometimes they use chicha de jora, so a fermented corn drink, and then bits of carrot, peas, and corn, the local corn, which is a lot bigger, almost like a hominy corn kernel. And then you have the duck displayed on top of it. So if you get all of that in the perfect bite, it is just so savory. It's one thing I really enjoy about Peruvian cuisine is you can use so many different flavors, but at the end of the day, it's about balance and it's about complementing. So there's no one thing that sticks out or overpowers any of the others. So that would be kind of a northern dish that's delicious, it's really big. And if you go to the south, one of my favorite foodie cities is Arequipa. So Arequipa is in the Andes, surrounded by 3 volcanoes. It's the white city of Peru. And you have a dish called rocoto relleno. So it's similar to maybe a stuffed pepper. The rocoto pepper, it looks like a bell pepper, and a lot of people make that mistake. It looks like a red bell pepper. When you open it, it has black seeds. So that's kind of your first, indication that this is a little different. And it's so spicy that it has to be boiled 2 to 3 times to take down the intensity of the heat level. Wow. Because it's just so spicy. From there, it's going to be stuffed with a mixture. So either beef, or in kind of this like high-end restaurants, you might find alpaca. And it's also with the olives, some raisins, a little bit of yellow chili as well, and the local Andean cheese. So paria cheese is what it's called, similar kind of to a fresh cheese. It's a younger cheese, and which is melted on top. So it's served as a stuffed pepper, melted on top. And then this is all served on a bed of souffled potatoes that are anise infused. So again, a variety of flavors. You have the sweet, savory, spicy, creamy, all coming together. So if you're ever not even in Arequipa, but any restaurant, that has Peruvian cuisine, rocoto relleno is where you want to be. If you like spicy things, but it's very good. Yeah. Regional.
Regional. It sounds awesome. I knew that alpacas were raised in Peru for their fine fiber. An alpaca sweater is very expensive. An alpaca scarf is very expensive. The fiber goes for big bucks. Yeah. I guess I didn't realize that folks were eating alpaca, those cute alpacas. They're eating alpaca meat in Peru.
Yes, they do. It's not going to be on every menu. It's kind of more of a specialty menus, or going back to the idea of innovation. But yeah, alpaca has been eaten, right? Like, guinea pig as well. Oh. You'll have some guinea pig from the Andes. Yeah. Which is the tasty thing about the guinea pig is the sauces. The sauce they serve it with is just delicious. You get kind of a spicy peanut sauce and Andean mint, which is called huacatay, which is also in the rocoto dish. And so it also gives it this herbal awakening within all of the different flavors. So yeah, it gets diverse.
Sam, you guys do cooking classes at Lima Gourmet Company, and I'm seeing these get a lot more popular now with food tour companies. They partner with chefs, or I even know one tour operator that does it in her own home. Yeah. And I'm glad to see this is happening. This is really a great experience for folks. Tell me what the specific experience is like for you guys at Lima Gourmet Company.
Yeah, that's a great point. We are, because it's getting beyond the city, getting beyond trying. Now people are getting more sophisticated. They're getting more curious. They want to know. They want to get hands-on and prepare themselves. So we've done just that. We've partnered with this amazing chef, Orlando Diaz, at his restaurant, Nuestro Bistro, which is where we have the cooking classes. And we want to take people beyond the ceviche and pisco sour. We used to run cooking classes years ago. We've been in business for 15 years. So we started as kind of an introduction to Peruvian cuisine and the main dishes, or, as we talked about, there are lots of main dishes, but Now we want to take it beyond that. So Orlando has created some really interesting recipes. So instead of ceviche, we'll go with a tiradito, which is like ceviche's cousin. It's a very thin filet, almost like sashimi, but even thinner, served with a different sauce, a different marinade on top. So we'll make a tiradito. Then we'll go with another classic, which is the causa, but Orlando gives it a nice twist. So always using local ingredients, using different types of potatoes, showing people that they can really stuff it or be creative or alter the recipes to their own taste so that when they get back in their countries and you can't find maybe a yellow chili pepper, what can you substitute this with? So it's not just an experience in situ, but you can actually take this back home with you. And from there, like the fusions. So the Italian fusion is really important, one of many. So we'll make a gnocchi, but is made with purple corn, for example, purple corn flour,
so cool.
Right?
That's awesome.
So yeah, giving it a twist. I mean, this is all thanks to Orlando's creativity and his willingness to go along with our crazy ideas, but it's been a really fun partnership. And so we'll do this with a wine pairing with some natural local wines. So, you can get kind of a full experience. So that's what it looks like in a really local restaurant in the district of Barranco. So you can wander around after and just get your hands dirty in the best of ways.
This is such a cool example of transplanted cuisine, which is, a dish coming from another place, in this case, gnocchi, but getting adapted based on local ingredients, in this case, purple corn. I have to imagine the gnocchis are absolutely stunning on the plate as well as being delicious.
Absolutely. And that's also part of it. And that's something that I really like that Peruvians take really seriously is it has to, there's an expression in Spanish that it has to go in through the eyes first. If it doesn't attract you visually, then your stomach might be like, oh, I don't know, what are we doing here? Your palate, your taste buds are like, I don't know about this. So the preparation and the plating is key, even for the simplest dishes. You have like a fried chicken kind of with rice and potatoes, but it's put in an angle or sliced, and then you have your herbs on top. It's the love, you notice the love, and it's a very widespread characteristic you see in Peru, and the love of cuisine and preparing it.
I guess I didn't realize there were so many Italians who had migrated to Peru. I knew there were a bunch in Argentina. There's a lot in Brazil. I didn't realize they'd gotten to the Pacific coast. It makes sense, though. There was a large migration of Italians. And I'm wondering, are there other ways that Italian cuisine represents itself in Peru?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost omnipresent, if it didn't have to fight and make a space for itself among other fusions, but it is very prominent. So we have like pastas, very common. So we'll do green pastas, right? That's like a pesto sauce, but then we'll use local cheese, our local fresh cheese. And so then you get the mix again. Or risottos. It's very common to find nowadays a risotto, but that is made with the yellow chili pepper sauce. So it's this very creamy, cheese-based yellow pepper sauce in the risotto. So you have this. Again,
taking that dish and bringing the local ingredients into it. So nice.
Yes, absolutely. And then, at Christmas, panettone. So you'll see kind of more classic dishes or classic recipes that are available, but you see a lot of fusion. So it's all about taking, and not in fusion just to replace an ingredient that tastes similar to the original ingredient, but to almost a rebirth of the dish through this fusion. And so that's what you'll see.
Yeah.
Pretty special.
That's awesome. It strikes me when you're describing these dishes, Samantha, that when we talk about risottos and pestos, those are northern Italian dishes. In the U.S., I lived in Rhode Island for many years, and there's a huge Italian-American population there. But all over the U.S., a lot of the Italian immigration came from Calabria and Sicily and Abruzzo and Puglia, southern Italy.
Yes.
This is a whole different thing. This northern Italy. This is we're talking about Lombardy when we talk about things like and Liguria when we're talking about pesto and risotto and stuff like that. It must have been a different migration pattern in Peru.
It is. I would have to, and I want to speak about something I don't know much about, but it is true. A lot of the contact I've had of the dishes I've seen, and even looking at the migration movements, it has been from northern Italy. That is very present. Absolutely. And then you'll have things that would just probably get you kicked out of Italy. They'll do scallops. Scallops are a big deal in Peru, but they'll do Parmesan scallops, which, you can't put cheese on seafood. Like, what is wrong? You're going to get your passport taken away, but it's a delicacy. I mean, it's delicious.
I think we just spent a month in Italy, and I think the mindset is beginning to loosen a little bit about cheese and seafood, but still, there is that certain taboo of putting cheese on your seafood.
Yes.
What about the indigenous people of Peru? This must be a really important part of Peruvian cuisine.
Absolutely. And how we see that in a big way coming through now is the focus on superfoods. So there's been this, kind of health craze worldwide to eat healthier and to, take an interest in your nutrition before you get sick. And so we've had this hyper focus on superfoods. And so you see that coming out in Peru as well. So how do you see that in terms of like the pseudo grains? So 50 years ago, no one from Lima or any big city would be caught dead eating quinoa. This is a livestock food, a livestock crop. But now you have quinoa, kiwicha, cañiwa. So all of these grains that are being used in desserts, and so this presence of indigenous crops that have been domesticated it's been on the rise for many years. So you have the pseudo grains, you have the fruits, especially, and some of the vegetables, but particularly the fruits coming out of the Amazon, like camu camu berry. So now you'll find that more readily available, and this Amazonian influence. It's like the fruit with the highest vitamin C concentration in the world, or some of the herbal, this ancestral knowledge of herbs for health, for blood pressure, for cholesterol. So you'll see that, and it's like cat's claw, or you'll see it in different, herbs, like we talked about the Andean mint, huacatai, or the horsetail, So you'll see these different herbs also being fused into dishes that are bringing a long trail of ancestral knowledge of the use of these foods, how we should use these ingredients and their influence. And so that's been really beautiful to see. And so you also have, like, Lima has always been kind of the epicenter of the culinary scene in Peru, but now you have wonderful restaurants opening up in Cusco and Arequipa and the Sacred Valley, so you see it, like we were talking about briefly, you would have to go to Miraflores to get a really elaborate meal. And now you're seeing this spread all across the country in a way that, people are really proud of. So it's fantastic. It's an ambassador in and of itself for people coming to Peru and what they take away, and all of the different cultural folds that you have in the indigenous cultures, like the tribal cultures in the Amazon or in the Andes. So it's fantastic. It's great.
When I think about Peru, one of the things I think about, and you mentioned this earlier, Sam, was the variety of potatoes, and that has to be a huge part of the indigenous diet and indigenous culture. And I'm a big potato lover. I used to have
it's your place then.
I used to have a little farm. I called it a hobby farm, but it was a lot more than a hobby when I was doing it. And one of our favorite things was to grow different varieties of potatoes. And finally here in Portugal, we got a spot because our apartment doesn't have a garden. We got a spot in the community garden, and my girlfriend is so excited about the sweet potatoes that she planted, because sweet potatoes are huge here in Portugal, and you've got several different varieties of sweet potatoes, including the purple ones. But anyway, so that's me. Can you talk about the potatoes a little bit in Peru and get me excited about going there and eating Peruvian potato dishes?
Well, potatoes are absolutely a staple in the cuisine. I mean, not only in the indigenous culture, but in Lima, you have, it's kind of funny because when you get a dish, you'll usually have rice and potatoes.
Yes,
same in Portugal. It's a hearty diet.
I was like, you would never see rice and potatoes on the same dish in the U.S. And every plate of the day in Portugal, you always get French fries and rice. Yeah. There's a lot of starch, man. But you can understand why, because it's cheap and it's filling, and Portugal's traditionally a poor country, and I'm sure the same with Peru. They had to get their calories some way, and it's a cheap and easy way of doing it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Yeah, no, not at all. Absolutely. And so because you have so many different varieties of potatoes, and you being a potato lover, know that there are some potatoes that are a little bit more fibrous, some that are a little watery, some that give, either the visual effects. So like the native Peruvian potatoes, when you cut them open, they're pink or purple on the inside. The yellow potato that's just going to be really rich. Some are better for a puree, like a mashed potato, and others are better for boiling and then, roasting. So you'll have that. And it's a serious thing. I mean, you will be judged if you invite someone over, especially like a mother-in-law, for example, and you use the wrong potato for the wrong type of dish. You will be judged, and it will be ruthless. I mean, you got to know your potatoes or else get out of the kitchen.
Are you speaking from experience, Sam?
I mean, I've seen it around. I've heard stories. I'm very blessed with my mother-in-law. She judges quietly.
Very good. What are some of your favorite Peruvian potato dishes?
Oh, that's okay. The causa. So we talked about this before. It kind of has a cool story behind it because in the War of the Pacific with Chile, you would have even the women and people supporting the troops and how best they could support us taking the ingredients that were abundantly available. So potatoes, for example, and chili peppers as well. We have over 400 types of chili peppers in Peru. Mix them together into a mass, like a dough. All right. And you fill it. So it's almost like kind of a sandwich. You have different presentations, right? But generally you would have a top part and a bottom part, and you would stuff the middle with tuna, chicken, fish, avocado, tomato, really whatever you want. But what was most readily available, right, was the potatoes, the chili pepper, the yellow chili pepper, especially for this mass. And it's called causa because the people that would be supporting the Peruvian troops during this time, they would go to the streets and for the cause, for la causa,
okay.
And so they would make these dishes to support the troops. So that's one of my favorites. It is served in the beginning. I'll be very honest. As an American, a cold potato was a little surprise. I didn't expect it, right? So when I ate it, I'm like, okay. So it just took me a minute because I wasn't expecting it, I guess, but I really come to love it because it has lime juice as well. It's a very fresh potato dish. Potatoes can be sometimes kind of heavy, as you know, or
Sure.
Get that caloric intake, get that starch, but this is really fresh and it pairs so nicely with the seafood or a little bit of crab meat and the avocado. So it's a very fresh coastal dish. So that is my fave, the causa. Love it. Delicious.
Last time we had John, we talked about pisco sours, and I'll have a link to that conversation in the show notes if people want to hear about that. But other than pisco sours, what other liqueurs or cocktails should we be sure to try when we're in Lima?
Pisco has a kind of funny origin story in that grapes are not endemic to Peru. So they were brought over by the Spaniards. And initially, Peru made really high quality wine. In fact, it was so high quality and so good that Spain had to ban them from producing wine because it was really cutting into their own wine production and exports. So from there, it was only legal to distill the grapes. And so that's how Pisco was born at the end of the day. So now what we're seeing is a return to this wine production and in a very cool way. So natural wines have reached the stage in Peru. And so you have grapes, we talked, okay, it's not endemic, but now you have grapes that have become accustomed to the terroir that are now, Peruvian grapes, like the Negra Criolla is one varietal. Then you have the Quebranta grape. So, for example, there is a really special vineyard that's located in Ica in the Pisco Valley called Bodega Murga. And so they are dedicated. They do pet nuts as well, but they make natural wines and they're using the local grapes. So it's really new. It's really cool. Peru is not a big wine drinking country because, you have like Argentina and then you have like Chile, right? But in Peru is the center of the vice royalty. It was totally banned. So that was it. It doesn't have a long culture of drinking a lot of wines. So now this return to natural wines has been really special. Orange wines. So using these local grapes, making these wines is something that, we found it so fascinating. And now they're in the top restaurants, this particular vineyard, but you see it all across Peru. This interest is starting. So we like to include them on the tours because it's something totally different. Like a lot of people are not accustomed or maybe fans yet. It's maybe acquired taste for some of the natural wines, but to try something different and something local to, get outside of the box. So that is one of the things that's kind of cool that's changed in very recent years. Another one, and this is a very traditional drink, but hasn't really been on the radar, but it's now kind of starting to come back and be a thing. It's called mistela. So mistela is going to be grape must mixed with pisco. So already distilled pisco, and you sip on it as a digestif or an aperitif before or after meals, kind of like a limoncello, on the sweeter side, but also fresh, light. It's lovely. I love it. Mistela. So I recommend that's what you try when you when you're back in town. Some of the natural wines in the mistela.
So we have that at the end of the meal, I would assume. Sounds good.
Yes.
And
yes.
I'd like to finish up this conversation, Sam, with something sweet. And I read about this thing called picarones, and they described it as sort of like a donut, but not really. And I just want to know what your take is on these. Tell me a little bit about them and where we would enjoy them.
Yeah, it is. It is like sort of like a donut. It's like donut nuanced. I like that. Yes. Also kind of an interesting origin story in that they were developed while Peru and while Lima was the centers of viceroyalty. So in order to find a more cost-effective recipe to Spanish buñuelos, this is how picarones were born. So it is flour that comes from squash and sweet potato. All right. So you mix this up, create the batter. And then one of the funnest things for me is to see how they're made. So it started as a street food and now it's on all of the top restaurants, They grab the batter with their hands and you have a big vat of boiling oil, they grab it with their hands and they just fling it in and it makes a perfect, not perfect, but it makes a ring. I'm like, how did you do that without burning yourself or having it splatter everywhere? I mean, it's just real quick. Grab the batter and they fling it into the ring. So it gets fried there. It comes out. It is lightly crunchy and very airy on the inside. And on top of this, they drizzle, it's called chancaca syrup, which is like a molasses. So it's thick, concentrated, very sweet, kind of earthy flavor. And it's mixed with this lightly fried dough, so which is not too sweet. So it's the perfect combination. And then you just, clearly you cut your little bites of your picarones and then you just mop up the syrup and it is delicious.
Oh, like nothing you'll get at Dunkin' Donuts. I grew up in I grew up in the Midwest. We grew up on apple cider donuts. And this sounds a little bit similar, but way better from what you're saying. I would love to have some of these. Can I
you have to.
I get a box of a dozen and a couple of bear claws.
But you can try them. A couple of bear claws. That's right. Come to Peru, we'll hook you out.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Samantha Lewis, it's been a delight catching up with you. I'm so glad that you're doing well at Lima Gourmet Company. We'll have a link to limagourmetcompany.com in the show notes. Highly recommend, you guys have been going strong for 15 years. Highly recommend people make a booking and go on the tour. You've got a bunch of different tours to try, including the cooking class that we talked about earlier. So thank you so much for returning. It's just been great catching up with you and a great conversation. Best of luck.
Awesome, Brent. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad you reached back out. I love following your travels, and I'm glad you thought of us to do a little round two. It's been such a pleasure. We'd be happy to have anyone that comes down to Peru. We'll show you around.
Okay, that's Samantha Lewis from Lima Gourmet Company, and you can book a tour at limagourmetcompany.com. I've also got a link in the show notes. And don't you just love the incredible breadth of the cuisine of Peru? And Sam knows all about it. Ask her about some minutia, and she just runs with it. And if you want to hear more of my conversation with Sam, become a member of my Substack. Members get access to the full interview, as well as lots of other extended episodes. You can become a member at destinationeatdrink.substack.com, and you'll hear Sam tell me about the coffee of Peru and how it ruined her for other coffee places. And she also tells me about the cafe culture of Lima. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in Kolkata, aka Calcutta, India, for a sweet called gulab jamun, turmeric in its natural state, and seafood curry for a special occasion. Don't miss that. Until then, there's more foodie travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a story about a very special and decadent coffee drink in Puglia, Italy. You can read that at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. There's also a brand new video for you. This one is about the Parade of Our Lady of Agony in Portugal. Trust me, there's very little agony here. It's really just a great celebration in northern Portugal. And watch the video. You can click on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com, or you can go to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. And if you're planning a trip to Portugal, check out my Portugal Foodie Travel Guide ebook at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. It's over 600 pages long, and of course, it has all the best things to eat and drink in 17 cities and towns in Portugal, but also all the best things to do. So it's really a complete travel guide, and it's just $9.99. Download yours at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.